So you are not going to believe the underdogs that will be best bets on this show here today from three of the best at wagertalk.com. If college football is what you are searching for and you like the dogs, they are going to be barking this weekend, no doubt, as we welcome in Brian Power, Adam Trigger, and Dwayne Bryan. Three best bets. And of course, we'll give you three game previews as usual. And we are going to start with Mr. Brian Power, who, after much back and forth, has decided to talk a little bit about the, is it the Mississippi State Arizona game, or have you gone ahead? Oh, no, I'm sorry. Alabama and Texas, because for the 38th time, you've changed your mind. So let me hear it here. Alabama and Texas. What are you going with here, my man?
Well, first off, Joe, I accommodated the producers and what they wanted to hear. I'm always aiming to please on the program, especially on a Friday. Now, let's talk about this game because I'm sure everyone wants to hear about it. Current number, Bama -7. Why is that interesting, Joe? Well, it's only the 9th time since 2016 Nick Saban is favored by that little. Previous 8, he's 2-6 against the number. 5 outright losses in that role. Now, it's only the second time going back all the way to 2011 that Bama is favored by 7 or less at home. They won one of those games over Georgia in 2020, and they lost one to LSU the year before that, 2019. That's the bad news for Bama. The good news is Texas head coach Steve Sarkisian has been pretty bad as a dog. Just 1-11 straight up since 2014 and 2-8 ATS the last 10 times in that role. But here at Texas, Sark's been a dog 5 times. And the good news, if you want to take the points here, 4 of those 5 games were decided by 1 score. And what does that include, Joe? How about last year's 20-19 loss to Bama in Austin, where Texas did cover? And I'm looking at this, and I think that meeting last year probably plays a big role in this number being so low. I do like Texas this year. I think they're going to win the Big 12, but I would certainly be surprised if they go to Tuscaloosa and win this game. I did not like what I saw in the trenches from the Longhorns last week against Rice. More on them later. At least along the offensive line. The Rice defense spent a lot of time in the Texas offensive backfield. 8 tackles for loss, 3 sacks. If you can't run on Rice, you probably aren't running on Alabama. It's not going to be on my card. It's not too often I would lean towards a favorite, but Bama is the way I think I'd go in this one. Tough to pass up laying such a short number with Saban at home. Sark, of course, Saban, a former Saban assistant, and per the Mark Lawrence playbook, Saban's 28-2 straight up against former assistants, including 10-4 against the number when favored by 18 or less. So really tough, I think, to pass up that short number with Saban at home, Joe.
Well, I mean, to be fair, Sark was usually drunk most of the time, didn't even realize he was at Alabama. So let us move on. And guys, just a quick reminder, if may I suggest hitting the subscribe button and a like button. If you like college football content, nobody's got more of it us than here at Wager Talk TV. So go ahead, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Much more game previews coming your way here as we hand it off to Mr. Trigger, Adam Trigger, in the house here. And he is going to take a look at a game here today. And Trig, I know you were going through the card, and of course, my Oklahoma State Cowboys, I'm assuming, is what popped out as they are taking on Arizona State, and what I understand is going to be about 110-degree day there. So what are you thinking with the Cowboys taking on the Sun Devils?
Yeah, 110-degree day. Well, night. I mean, this is the degenerate special for my guy, Drew Martin Betts. This is one of the last ones on the board. And it's going to be 110, and Arizona State's going to be decked out in all black, as far as I know. That's what they're going to go with for Saturday night. Listen, Joe, I know these are your Oklahoma State Cowboys. I have some big concerns with this team this year. Now, I've been trying to talk myself into betting Arizona State all week. I have not added it to my client card yet, but I would look that way simply because I have some big questions with Oklahoma State, big concerns, stuff I've heard all summer. And then, of course, last week, we see them come out and, struggle with FCS Central Arkansas. Arizona State struggled too. Like, we'll get to them in a second. But what I'm seeing with Oklahoma State is a team that has 3 quarterbacks, but not 1 quarterback, right? So they bring in, it's Rangel and Bowman. We're kind of like the 2 that were maybe supposed to compete for the starting job. And then Gunnar Gundy's the one that ends up being sort of the most impressive, just to throw his hat in the ring last week. But I guess the overwhelming sort of sense I'm getting from Oklahoma State is why did Spencer Sanders leave, right? Like, why is he not there? He went to Ole Miss to essentially be a backup quarterback. And then I'm also hearing Oklahoma State talk about struggling in the portal with the NIL, and their recruiting class coming into this season was as bad as it's been in a long time for Gundy. All of those things make me think that this could sort of go off the rails sooner than later for Oklahoma State, and maybe this is the spot where we jump in and oppose them going on the road to have to play at Arizona State. Now, it's tough to be super inspired by Arizona State and want to bet this team because they struggled with an FCS team last week as well. Barely beat Southern Utah, 24-21 game. But I just like what's going on there right now in terms of, like, maybe them being on the uptick. Internally, they were trying to sabotage Herm Edwards. Now they got Kenny Dillingham, who's a 33-year-old, sort of like energized, the youngest head coach at a Power 5 school. I saw him say earlier he's trying to get the fan base riled up, wants the stadium packed on Saturday night. And, he brings in a defensive coordinator that I think could be, pretty good in terms of giving Arizona State a little bit of a defense, which they didn't have much of last year. They still have Elijah Badger. Surprised he stayed there after the coaching change, but he was one of the better receivers, playmakers in the Pac-12 last year. So there's enough there that I think that they may be just at the beginning of building in the right direction. So I guess for my big game breakdown and the point, Arizona State's a team that I might look to sort of play on that I think could potentially have some hidden value at some point this season. Maybe here, could very well be here. It looks like people agree with me. This is down to 3, despite the ticket count being heavily toward the Oklahoma State side. But Oklahoma State is a team I'm going to find a spot to play against. Again, I don't know if this is going to be in my client card, but it's certainly close. I like the Sun Devils plus the points. I just think these two teams might be going in opposite directions, more so than that's being sort of shown at this point. And maybe we look back at this week 2 game 10 weeks from now and say, man, Arizona State was really a 3-point dog in that game. That's kind of how I see this one. So I would take the points here.
All right, looking to take the points here with the home dog there in Arizona State. Dwayne Bryant, welcome in here, my friend. Love this game. We actually heard this earlier in the week with it, but I didn't agree with the handicapper, by the way, that broke that down. So I can't wait to hear what you say about this Wisconsin and Washington State game. How are you going to lay this one out?
Well, that handicapper you didn't agree with, that wouldn't be Brian Power, would it?
No. Close.
No.
Just as
close.
worse. It's
Well,
Marco. But Gad, you got it. Go ahead.
I would have lost that bet, Joe. I mean, this is a rematch from almost exactly a year ago. Washington State visited Madison. They were about a 17-point road dog. They actually sprung the upset 17-14, but Wisconsin dominated that game. They had 12 more first downs, 148 more total yards. They had the ball for about 16 more minutes. They just shot themselves in the foot in that game with penalties and turnovers. But now's their chance. They get to return the favor in front of the Cougars home fans this time around. We'll see what happens. The Badgers got off to a slow start last week. It was Luke Fickell's first game as head coach. They only led Buffalo by 4 at the half. They did get it together in the second half. They pulled away for a 3-touchdown win. I think the line was something like minus 29, so they didn't get the cover there. Wisconsin, known for its rushing attack, they did get it going in the second half of that game. Ended up rushing for over 300 yards at nearly 8 yards a clip. On the other side, Washington State rolled Colorado State on the road, winning by 26 points as about a 10-point road favorite. Not too much I can say about that game other than the Cougars just dominated that one. But I think that actually sets us up for a little zigzag action here. I always caution football bettors about not overreacting to what they saw last. And here we have a Wisconsin team that opened the season in less than impressive fashion. And then on the other side, you've got Washington State. They came storming out of the gate last week, throttled Colorado State on their home field. So I can see the temptation here to bet based on those results, and that would be, that would lead you to play Washington State here. I think that's a mistake. Wisconsin is the better team here. They're better than what they showed last week in Fickell's first game. I don't think Washington State is as good as they appeared last week. Wisconsin is the better team overall. They've got that revenge motivation on their side. In addition to the fact that they didn't play all that well last week. So they should be motivated to put a better effort on the field this week. I have not bet this game yet. I definitely do, though, lean to Wisconsin laying anything less than a touchdown.
Gotta say, Dwayne, I think you nailed it. Wait until you guys hear the 3 best bets coming up here in just the next couple of minutes. But I do want to offer you the opportunity right now, and we do this with every show if you're new to us here at Wager Talk. Any questions about this weekend's games, the 3 games they just broke down, or any of the 3 best bets they're about to lay out, go ahead and drop them in the comment section. These guys have been fantastic. They monitor it all week long. They will get back to you and answer your questions. So go ahead, drop a comment below and ask us anything you want to know about week 2 in the college football season as we bring it on back to Mr. BP, Brian Power. And I don't even want to know because I'm sure you probably changed it between now and the last time we spoke. So let me ask you, are you still going with maybe the most unbelievable dog of the week here? I like your approach, but break it down for us here when it comes to Rice taking on Houston.
Joe, I enjoy doing the show with you. I really do. And we've done enough of them together now. We can start. Yes, I figured as such. But we've done enough of them together, Joe, as you know, that we can start playing some of the old hits. So on that note, someone in the chat needs to drop that old familiar owl gif because we are dialing up our old friends at Rice here. Now, rather infamously, I'm sure as you recall, Joe, the first time I played Rice last year, I think they lost something like 203-6. But that was not the final score in all seriousness. But USC, I think, had 3 non-offensive touchdowns in that game. It was a gross outcome for yours truly. But the rest of the way, if you were paying attention, Rice was quite a profitable team against the spread. I won with them several times. They ended up even in a bowl for the first time in 8 years. This year, they opened against Texas. Not surprisingly, they lost. It was a 37-10 final, but Owls do cover as 5 touchdown underdogs. So that's good. And I'm going to take them here, Joe, plus the points against a Houston team that is off what we in the business call a phony win. Houston last week outgained both for the game and per play by UTSA. The key in that final was UTSA was, they turned it over 3 times. Frank Harris, my goodness, it's his like 8th year in college and a very uncharacteristic 3 interceptions in that one. Bad special teams from the Roadrunners, lots of penalties. I thought UTSA lost that one more than Houston won it. Houston was actually a slight dog last week, but now they're favored, and that's been a problem for Dana Holgerson. He's just 41% ATS, laying more than a field goal. Cougars couldn't run the ball last week, just 2.7 yards per carry, and Rice, as I mentioned earlier in the show, was not all that bad along the defensive line against Texas. Houston loses a lot from last year, and situationally, they beat UTSA in a close one, and they've got their first Big 12 game on deck next week at home against national runner-up TCU. So not a great spot for Houston. Meanwhile, this game probably means a lot to Rice. They lost only by a touchdown last year to Houston. Remember, it's a city rivalry. Schools separated by just 4 miles. Give me the points, Joe. And Rice.
Wow.
Rice. We've got the Rice here, a visual aid here. There we go.
Wow.
Rice.
Aren't we lucky? He brought props. Yay. All right, Rice it is there. Come on, Adam Trigger. You got to break it down for us. We got one out of his mind dog here with Rice 9.5. Can you top it with what might be just the most disgusting game known to mankind this weekend? Tell us how you're going to look at Northwestern taking on UTEP.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that we didn't use this for the garbage game is, it probably was runner-up right here. But listen, so big game breakdown, I made a sort of the general statement that, like, with Oklahoma State just doesn't look like a team that I want to back on the road. But everyone seems to agree that Oklahoma State's going to win that game, right? if you look at the betting splits. And I'm seeing a very similar sort of dynamic going on here. The masses have decided that UTEP is going to roll on into to Evanston, Illinois, and win this game. And I have to disagree with that and for a few reasons. One, let's go back to last week, Joe. Did anyone catch the line in the UTEP incarnate word game? You may not have because these FCS lines come out like an hour before the game now. UTEP was just a 7.5 point favorite at home to incarnate word, which I think was very telling. And they did win that game and they covered. They won 28-14. But the fact that the odds makers threw a number like that up kind of tells me what I need to know a little bit, or at least sort of confirms my assessment that this UTEP roster is just not that good. And this UTEP team is just, they may win some games this year based on the conference they play in. But this just isn't a great team. You go back to week one, you could make it. There's a case to be made that UTEP should have won that game against Jacksonville State. 100 more total yards of offense. They turned it over 3 times. But they were victims of turning the ball over and atrocious coaching, which tends to get magnified on the road and will likely be magnified by going on the road and playing a Big Ten team. Now, there's going to be the masses that said, well, this isn't just any Big Ten team. It's Northwestern. They could be one of the worst Big Ten teams ever. But I would disagree with that because there's still Big Ten athletes on Northwestern's roster. And while they are still going to have a bad season, I think UTEP is a step down in class where their general athlete and player is going to be better than what UTEP has. Now, they lose to Rutgers, but listen, Rutgers has a legitimate Big Ten defense. That's a really good defensive front. Northwestern ran for 12 yards in that game and couldn't do much offensively. They were sacked 5 times. The Northwestern offensive line, which isn't good, got just totally chewed up by that Rutgers defensive front. I don't think UTEP is going to have the ability to sort of just wipe out the Northwestern offense the way that Rutgers did. Now, on the other side of the ball, Northwestern, what's lost in sort of the dominant sort of 24/7 Rutgers win last week is the fact that Northwestern held Rutgers to 285 yards of total offense. And Rutgers was a little bit fortunate. They were 8 for 18 on 3rd down, but more importantly, 3 for 3 on 4th down, where, one of those plays goes Northwestern's way, and that could have been a different game. So I think you're seeing here, Northwestern was made to look really bad by a very good Rutgers defense last week. They're not going to run into that type of resistance here. Of course, Northwestern is on their home field, not on the road, in a standalone national TV game, which is what they were last week. And man, UTEP, I just don't know that they have the roster and the athletes and the poise on offense to go on the road and beat a Northwestern team that, while they're going to have a bad season, this is still a team that has a respectable defense and a respectable Big Ten defense. So I think UTEP is a little bit outclassed here. It's as crazy as that is to say. I think the wrong team is favored. And so my best bet for the show is Northwestern plus 1.5. I would make Northwestern the favorite in this.
Wow, we got a wrong team favored. So yet another dog. I told you they were going to be disgusting. Don't forget, guys, if you like the content here, if college football is what you strive to profit from, go ahead, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. Plenty of content all week long in college football as well as the NFL. Just a couple of clicks away here as we look to round it out with the man. We were on the same page, Dwayne, there last time. I have no doubt we are going to nail it again here. Talk to us about your best bet here heading into week 2 of the college football season.
Yeah, so I played this and released it to my clients. I'm on Nebraska plus 2.5, minus 105 at Colorado. It's a 3% play, which is my normal average bet size. My only college football loss last weekend was TCU. And I always say, if I have to lose, I don't want it to be close. I'd rather lose in a blowout than on some fluke play at the end of the game. Well, I damn sure got my wish last Saturday because Colorado won outright as about a 3-touchdown dog. So, the aftermath of that huge win for Colorado is twofold. Number one, do they suffer a letdown off a huge road win against the team that lost the college football playoff championship game last season? And number two, do they come into this game overconfident? I think Coach Sanders is going to have his work cut out for him with these kids this week. On the other side, Nebraska's coming off a tough 13-10 road loss at Minnesota. They covered the plus 7.5. They led the game 7-3 with under 3 minutes to play. And they actually outgained Minnesota by 44 total yards, but they were done in by a -3 turnover margin. That being said, to be a touchdown plus road underdog, be -3 in turnovers, and still damn near win the game, that tells me that Colorado better not sleep on Nebraska here. And Nebraska's got two edges here that I want to point out. Number one, they last played 2 Thursdays ago, while Colorado played Saturday. So the Huskers do have 2 extra days to rest and prep for this game. And number two, Nebraska has game film on this Colorado team, and that's something TCU did not have last Saturday. So there's no element of surprise here to give the Buffs an edge. I'm basically buying low on a Nebraska team that shot itself in the foot multiple times last week and still nearly won. And I'm selling high on Colorado coming off that huge upset. This just feels to me like one of those games where everyone is going to overreact to what they saw last weekend. Maybe my boy Neon Dion burns me again. And if he does, well, shame on me. But I'm willing to bet he doesn't. I think the wrong team's favored here. So I'm on Nebraska plus the points.
Still kind of crazy to have more action on that game than there is all the remaining NFL games on the card right now. And you're shaking your head, Brian. Do you have another prop that you wanted to add to there? Are you going to pull something? You got a shuck of corn? Like, what's going on there? What do you do? No, just more rice. All right, never mind that. All right, guys, there you got it. 3 best bets. We're talking dog, and dog with these best bets here today. And of course, if you go ahead, hit that subscribe and like button, guys, you'll get notified, of course, with all the latest game preview videos that we have here on Wager Talk TV. In fact, don't go anywhere. Just go ahead, click on the video on your screen right now, and you'll get all of those game previews. And then, of course, come back and join us again over the weekend for another edition of the College Football Kickoff Show. Good luck this weekend.